Good morning, everybody, and welcome to ESO Daily. I'm your host, Mr. Craven. All right, let me just check this really quick, make sure we're all good to go here. So I'm going to have a different screen up today. A lot to cover. I got to tune into Zai's stream yesterday. If you haven't checked that out, please go check his stream. He got back from ZeniMax and for the test, Summerset test, along with some other content creators. And, you know, so I've gotten a lot of information from the preliminary reports from these players, as much as I could gather anyways. And, you know, but there's a couple things I want to talk about today. And it's kind of very important, especially with configurations. And we will be going into that. And it's kind of important. I'm going to be on a Stamplar today on PTS. Just for the simple fact of I'm going to show you how to anticipate configurations for Summerset. And why it's going to be very important. Why it is very, very important. Right? And there's a lot to be discussed. A couple things I'm not really happy with. We'll be discussing that. There's just a lot of stuff to cover, right? Just a slew of stuff. So it's going to be crazy. It's going to be nuts today, I promise you. So normally I usually do my dailies, but like I said, I'm going to be in here today. We're going to definitely be breaking down some stuff. Oh, back there. Give me that. Crazy, crazy, boy. When I heard all this, I was just kind of like taken backwards by certain things. Other things I was like pumped up for. I'll be honest, I was like, yes, yes, yes. And then I'm like, no. Oh, shit. And I was just like, okay. So let's talk about Night Mothers and Sunder. So from the initial preliminary, ZOS wants to change the debuff applications to give both sets major fracture. That is going to basically take PvE applications and trash the sets completely. A lot of people will be like, well, how do you assume that? Well, there's nothing to assume. Tanks go ahead and hit peers, and when they do that, it applies major fracture. Major fracture does not stack. So, unfortunately, that's a loss going to occur. So let's cover that really quick. That's why I'm popped up in here. We're going to just go down to a calculator, and we'll pull up a calculator real quick. What's up, Marty? Morning. I'm hoping everybody can see my screen okay. Okay, so let's discuss this. We are looking at 18,200, right, for pen cap on standard bosses, majority of your boss encounters. Even, you know, there's some slight differences on certain things when it comes to PvP. That's neither here nor there. But 18.2 is usually the number we always keep in the back of our heads. And what Sunderflame does is 3,600 deduction, right? So we're going to deduct 3,600. And then we're looking at 2,400, I want to say, for Night Mothers. Okay. Sounds like they may reconsider that debuff. They should. That's huge. That's really bad, the debuff. Yeah. That's really bad. Major fracture doesn't stack. It would take a set like Night Mothers and Sunderflame and make them utterly flipping useless. Useless. I understand the reasoning behind it. But, as you guys could see, that's 6,000 pen that we're missing for stand players. 6,000 pen. That's not little. That's huge. That's a massive, massive loss when we take a look at penetration caps. Now, I understand why they would want to do that, to make Sharpen and Lover more appealing for stand players, making them more dependent on pen sets, making them more dependent on Mundus selection and weapon selection, because remember, Maces ignores 20%, whether you're dual wield or you're 2H. 20% is a lot, but even if you use Maces, you don't get that with the bow unless what? You go ahead and use Sharpen. And if you use Sharpen, you still don't maximize that much. If they don't, then it's the Lover and Sharpen, right? It'd be Lover and Sharpen, or you can use Pen with Lover. You can use a pen set like Two Fang or Spriggans, and then use the Warrior. You could go that way too if you use Sharpen. So there, but you still lose out on the Nirnhone, or you can use Nirnhone, the Lover, and a pen set and deduct, because that's what we're usually accustomed to, is offsetting the different value in CP, because that's what we try to do. Because also, if we're taking a look at this 12 something, we know Major Fracture is going to deduct 5,280, and then we would still have to make up a value of 6,920. Now, keep in mind, Alkosh has another form of deduction. I want to say 3,400 or something like that, 3,000 something, 3,002 or something like that, off the top of my head. But even with that being applied, let's say, and infused, we would still have to make up like a little under 2K in our CP points, or trait value with the Sharpen. Sharpen would actually over-penetrate at that point. That's the problem with Sharpen at that point. So, you know, to taking a set like that so it doesn't stack and making Sharpen more appealing, it does sound, you know, like, oh, it's a good thing because now we make Sharpen more viable for whatever. And Maces, unfortunately, though, in my opinion, they just need to readjust the penetration value of sets slightly to make Sharpen more appealing, if that's what they're aiming for. But totally taking a debuff set and trashing it, crazy. They said they wanted to make more sets viable. I agree with that. I totally agree with that, Marty. The problem of it is, though, taking it, putting Major Fracture on it, on a stat or debuff that doesn't stack, makes the sets useless. That's why I think they need to evaluate the penetration value on each set slightly. But by putting Major Fracture on them, it doesn't stack. PvP, it has application. PvE, total trash. It'll trash Night Mothers and Sunder. It'll totally trash them. That's the truth. They might not like it, but it's the truth. It'll totally trash the sets. And I totally understand why more sets are going to be viable. Totally understand that. But you got to be very careful about how you approach that. Morning, Joshua, but I totally agree, Marty. Totally, man. I understand exactly what the devs are doing. So I'm not really opposed to them playing around with the idea. Just think very carefully before you implement. Think very, very carefully. Because Major Fracture is a non-stacked status. It's a status debuff that will not stack, making it very, very, very interesting. Okay, so I'm not going to take dual wield for a minute because I'm going to demonstrate something. Now, this isn't going to be whatever, but it's just to demonstrate something, especially for mags and whatever with the new 2H. So now, bows, 2H, and staffs, that's what they are reconsidering. Yeah, they have to. Because if they don't, I just say adjust the value. Leave Night Mothers alone, readjust Sunder. Readjust Alkosh. Those are two sets you could readjust and not completely trash everything. If you adjust it by, I want to say 1,200, roughly, on each set, Sharpen would be optional, lever would be optional, and pen would still be applicable based on the amount of allocation into the CP system. Between 12 and 15. But, oh, whatever, about 12 and 15 is the adjusted value. You'd have to take sets that penetrate over 3,000, drop them down to about almost the equivalent value, about 25, to make those sets, any other setup config, appealing. That's what would have to happen. So, anywho, it's kind of interesting. I'm like, wow. As soon as I even heard that, I was like, ouch, ouch. Another thing they could do at opt is minor. Instead of major fracture, apply the minor. Morning, Scott. What's up, brother? But yeah, Marty, you make good points, man. They should reconsider it. Totally. They have to be careful. You have to be careful, especially when that big of a chunk is lost. You're pigeonholing your stand players at that point. You're totally pigeonholing them. Morning, Hallie. You're definitely going to pigeonhole them, which is going to suck. Wrong ability. There we go. Okay. So, it's kind of important to understand what the double stat is going to do, especially with... No, you didn't. I was just going over like some of the pen and why if ZOS doesn't reconsider the major fracture to Night Mothers and Sunder, it's going to be trashing the sets. Because tanks that apply major fracture or any ability like shocks or stand DKs, noxious breath, it doesn't stack. So it's going to trash the sets. Just totally the way it is. It's the truth. You know, people ain't going to like it. But, hey, just the way it is. I don't like even saying it, to be honest with you. But, you know, whatever is whatever. Okay, so let me go over, like, configs. And like I said, I'm not going to be doing a lot of tests. But, you know, I was crunching numbers last night. Unfortunately, I got to do a little bit of PvP. But I didn't get to stream PvP last night because I got on late. I had to do some real life watching my granddaughter and then crunch some numbers off to the side. It was kind of like, oh shit. So, because remember, nothing's set in stone, and I don't take anything serious until phase 2. That's when I know that some of the changes that are being placed will become more permanent. That's not to say that other changes won't be implemented prior to live, but phase 2 is usually when you know, hey, this is pretty much going to be set in stone. Mystic, how pumped when they said 2H weapons will be considered 2-piece of set? I have mixed emotions about it, Scott, and I'm about to get into why I have mixed emotions about that. So, it's kind of, it is interesting. So basically, when we're taking a look at alternative weapons, we got Maelstrom, we got Master, we have the Asylum, whatever have you. Now, first off, a lot of people like Maelstrom Bow. I don't like Maelstrom Bow over Master. Just my preference, because that applied effect applies to all my abilities versus one. Just saying. If I were going to go, if I'm going to build anything, which I typically do not, I go with this. I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to grab the Sharpen, because we got 2,752. You know, they could round that up to about an even 3K. If they put up Sharpen to 3K value, you know, and, you know, that would be a complete increase and very well worth it for different considerations. The 52 offset makes no fucking sense to me. Makes no sense. You know, just saying. From, you know, whatever standpoint you want to talk at. Makes no sense. Oh, I got to get daggers. Sorry about that. So, Master daggers. Or dual wield. Maelstrom is kind of like, if you're using that spammable. Master's kind of what we're more accustomed to, obviously. All right. So I'm going to grab all three of these. Axes, whatever have you. Usually I'm going to grab the sharpen and infuse as well. We'll grab that also, whatever have you. All right. Now, let's look at some of the trial sets. We're going to go with the medium trials. And we want to go for dungeon sets. And I'm going to show you guys something kind of interesting. How you're going to be able to take a look at configs, both between Magicka and Stam. In that aspect, and why some configurations are not. I'm going to pick up this one. I'm also going to pick up Vicious. Let's go with dungeon sets. Where's that at? Dungeon mediums. Automaton. Strength of automation. Automaton. Okay. Now I'm going to grab the shoulders here to kind of mimic what we're going to be doing. Bear with me. I know it sounds like it's craziness. It's going to sound all sorts of friggin' nuts. Trust you and me. It's going to be crazy. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'm going to grab a waist. I'm going to grab the jewelry. I'm going to grab the weapons. Okay. And then we'll grab one monster piece here. And I'll show you what we're doing here. Okay, I need a great axe. Okay. And a bow. Sorry. I also need a bow. All right. And then I'm going to need my jewelry. Right? Yeah. All right. I think that's it. Monster sets. And let's go with Magic users can get the same benefits of Stam users when it comes to double stacks. I know you wanted wands and such, but I think it will bring more diverse builds to the game. Well, I think they're going to come out with wands and scepters. It's just not going to be this year. They did mention to the players they're in the works of new weapon skill lines. So, I do believe it will eventually be implemented. But as of when will have to be remain to be seen. So I actually think they did kind of listen. They're just not implementing it with Summerset. So one can hope, one can hope. Okay, so here's the deal, guys. We're going to talk about double stack versus your Maelstrom and your monster, or your alternate, your whatever weapons versus double stack config. Now, I'm going to kind of mock this. So with the shoulder, right? That's why I grabbed the automaton shoulder, right? Now, pretend, I want you to pretend that this headpiece is a full monster set. Why? Because the automaton is going to give us what? A 2-slot on the bow and the 2H, right? It's going to give us a double stat, right? It's going to give that to us. Very important. Very, very important. Now keep in mind, I'm not going to like customize and optimize for configuration. This will not be a build. I'm just kind of demonstrating what you can anticipate with this type of configuration. Oh, no. I want that. Might actually have to grab some more Two-Fang. Alright. I think I need one more piece of Two-Fang. Yeah, I do. Okay. Now, if it stands, if it does stand, and we do not get a change, we can also anticipate that you're either going to be running a pen set, like Spriggans and Two Fang, because, or Sharpen or Lover, because all of these things are going to be relative. Now, here's the deal. Okay. I'm going to get 386 on a stack, along with the penetration without the drop-off, if I use Two Fang. Now, you can back bar it, but you'll lose like a two stack drop between the intervals, unless you maintain. So you only got like 1 second switch and a 2 second, stack drop off, if you do it that way, which you have to anticipate. So a lot of times you won't max, but you'll get that whatever. And that's a loss in that aspect if you're not anticipating it. But very important, because if this is a monster set, it leaves me no room for what? A Master or Maelstrom. It leaves no room for it. None. Against the stack. The stack will prevail. Why? Because all of this is sets on what? Ability direct. It will set to ability direct. Can I still use a Master or Maelstrom? Use Bow, and Summerset. Dude, that's a badass idea, Yarg. That, I completely agree with you. And yeah, dude, yeah. Bow is going to be really good. Yeah, I totally agree. Especially Blades. Like, the classes who have the abilities, like Wardens and Blades, will be able to make viable builds. Stamsork, not going to be able to. It doesn't have class abilities, which sucks. Morning, David. So this is kind of the interesting part, right? This is very interesting, because I could still use the Master or Maelstrom or whatever weapons you have, but guess what I have to give up to do it? I have to give up one piece of my monster set, right? If I still want to hold a double stack with a 2H. So for a Magicka user, that's very important, because why? That is your Maelstrom staff, your Asylum staff, and definitely not Master. But it's one of those two staffs that you're going to have to be like choking up. Like, oh shit. Like, why? Because it only affects the effects, but not the abilities. Okay? So basically, it's like if I took Hundings and Automaton, that weapon damage will stack. Extra damage, light attack, next patch. Yep. With a Sigic, right? And I heard that they're trying to get it so it's not behind a paywall. But honestly, 2H suches. Yep. Totally. Light attacks are going to be very... It's not going to affect Sorks the way people think. Because a lot of people want to think power overload, right? That when you do a light attack, it'll affect that. It won't. Because your light attacks actually are technically heavy attacks, right? So it's not going to register the way they anticipate. It won't. Once you do the light attacks switch to heavy attacks. It specifically says that. So it won't set up the way some people are anticipating a power overload build. It won't. Elegance, though, will be coming back very hard on that note. Elegance will be very, very, very productive. So will your trial set and Foul. Those sets will look very pretty with this new update. But if I'm going to use a Master or Maelstrom bow, so let's say I use the Master bow, which I like because increase your weapon damage 301 against targets affected by poison. That's every damage type. That's light, that's ability. I always prefer Master over Maelstrom, hands down. Right? Because while it's affected, it's applied. No doubt about it, unless you're using The dual wield, which there's a bug, I'm aware of it. I think everybody else is. But Master for me, way to go, right? But unless I'm using a carryover build, right, like Serpent, sorry, that's my granddaughter and my daughter. No elegance. I think the elegance, though, does affect the light attack. Let me check. Because we're looking, I think, at light and heavy. No, let me check. Light and heavy attacks. And if that's a light, if it applies to the light attacks, it'll definitely push it up. I am so sorry. She just woke up. I am so sorry if you hear a baby crying in the background. She just woke up and she is very grumpy. Where is it? It's an overland set. I know it is. Why isn't it in here? I grabbed the light. VO 5 Stormfist sustained for LA. I agree. I think that's exactly what it's going to go into, and I was just about to get in that with the VO. Because the VO, if you want to go ahead for a back end bar and maintain, it will be the way. And that is exactly what Yargs is pointing out. Because it's going to be the Storm set that is in the 1. It's not Storm Fist. 5 VO, Storm Fist, yeah. And sustained for light attacks. Master Bow don't do enough damage like VMA. VMA bow is only applied to 1. I get more damage from Master. If you want to, you get more damage from 1 ability. That's it. You're sure you're up times 100%. Saying the VMA bow is still OP. I don't know, man. Light attacks, and I get an effect across the board. Master bow died. I like Master still. I get 300 something weapon damage with all effects. I don't know, man. They fixed the VMA daggers. Cool, cool deal. I know you said it was bugged. I like the Master just because of the 300. When I'm looking at VMA, when I look at a VMA bow, no, that's Master. Where in the heck did I do with that? I don't like just the 1 setup, just for 1 ability. It kind of like, ugh. It's like, yeah, deals great amount of damage for 1 ability. Cool. You're thinking of Storm Master set. Yeah, the Storm Master set on light attacks for Stamsork is going to be really good with the changes. That set is going to be really beast. Storm Master usually does. But for a Stamsork with the light attack changes, it'll be a little bit more viable with this new configuration. Because you're going to actually get light attack damage increase on top. It'll stack. So typically I'd say you're right. I've used Storm Master in the past. I thought it was a fun build, but didn't keep up. It definitely didn't keep up. No Master Bow in next. Got you. So that's, yeah. I could see that. For now, I like Master. Endless Hail OP. I'm aware, Snoop. I use Endless Hail in every config, Snoop. There's not a build I don't have with Endless Hail. BMO bow deal more damage. It does for 1 ability. For 1 ability. But I can get an entire more across the board with every ability with Master. That's a preference thing. I get listen then, I get 301 weapon damage when it's affected. That's across every ability. Right? Every ability I do is increased by 301. It's not 1 ability with that like Endless Hail. It's every ability across the board. Stormmaster don't give you 700 weapon. Right. And that's what I'm saying. Right now, it's a shit set. You're right. It's a shit set. But, right. No, I knew what you meant, Yarg. I definitely knew what you meant. And you're right. But, with the upcoming changes, with the light attacks, any set that's going to increase light attack damage is going to stack. That's what I'm saying. So we're going to get a stacked effect. Next chapter, 5, Elfbane. 5, no. Not on me. No. Not Elfbane. Burning Spellweave, right. 2 seconds. Seems good. With the jewelry, the weapon, and 1-piece heavy. I get where they're going with it. I get the idea. But a 2-second, based off of the rotation, it makes the rotation easier. But it doesn't really increase the amount of damage versus how much I could put in. Like, I could put Julianos and Burning Spellweave and get more than Elfbane. And Zan, it'll be good. I won't use Elfbane because I'm aware what Elfbane does. It adds 2 seconds. Doesn't add to my ability's effect. Stormmaster give you only vulnerability. Right. Right. No, Stormmaster is going to affect light attacks and heavy attacks. What Stormmaster does. So when I go into medium dungeon sets, and we go down to Stormmaster, I hope they have it right here. When you deal critical damage with the fully charged heavy attack, your light attacks deal an additional 170 shock. Right? So, light attack stack. Now, you'll still have to have Spell Pen. That's the downside. Right? But the stacked effect will meet on light attack weave, is what I'm saying. So, once you hit with the 1 heavy attack and you crit it, right? Next thing you know, you're stacking 170 each additional light attack hit on top of the stack. And then it can apply what? Off balance. Because remember, shock damage can apply the off balance. Or the concuss. So if it applies concuss, right? Then you get another damage boost. Elegance set with light attacks. I said that. Elegance will make a comeback with a light attack build. For sure. Stormmaster will be good if it for a light attack build. If you have the pen. With the pen's going to be the issue. But the stacked effect with the concuss would apply. Especially if you're running charged. You can run a charged trait, apply status effect on set, and then all of a sudden, guess what? Stack it. That's what would happen. Then you get concuss. Now remember, there's immunity to it though as well. Zan OP, single target PvE on Mag DK, even with the long ass cooldown. Right. Zan's good. I like it for single target, especially on a boss encounter. It looks really beast. I don't like the fact that if you apply the dot in an AoE radius, it can hit an add, and then all of a sudden you're on cooldown. It's the only thing I don't like about Zan. It's the only one downside. The only downside to it. The radius is actually pretty good. The length of distance is actually pretty killer, to be honest with you guys. So, I don't think Zan's going to change in that aspect. Overload circs are going to be running. No, it doesn't. Overload's not going to be effective, Scott. Because when you take a look at power overload, your light attacks become heavy attacks. They don't become light attacks. So it won't hit. Power overload won't hit the way some people think. It's not. Because your light attacks, it specifically says, becomes heavy attacks. Light attacks become heavy attacks. So light attack stack isn't going to do anything. So, will it still give you the damage modifier for heavy? Sure. What I'm more curious about is if it will require more mats to craft the 2 HPs. Shouldn't, but the upgrades is going to be pretty interesting. They buffed bound armor. Yeah, I know. I'm kind of cool about that, especially since I run Sork tanks. Be kind of interesting, but I've been running Sork tank for a minute now. So I'm really liking the change, especially since it's an affected. But when I'm taking a look, Sunder Flame, if they had Major Fracture, set's done. Night Mother, if they had Major Fracture, PvP only. It will never see a light of day in the dungeon. Ever. Ever. It will never. But anyways, okay. So if I use a Master, right? And I use, like, the Automaton set, for example, and I want to maintain it, guess what I'm going to have to give up? If I want to stay to the stat on a 2H, now this is kind of important. 1 second. Telemarketer at 9 o'clock. God dang, they're persistent. Okay. I hope they give us some research scrolls for rings or for... Well, no, you'll be able to get some of those in the Crown Store. As far as, like, your Crown Crates and stuff. So, 15 minutes. I gotta hurry up. Scott, what's up? Okay, I gotta hurry. So I got 15 minutes. So this is the deal, guys. Now listen. If I'm going to use a double stack config, if I'm going to, right? And I'm going to use a Master or Maelstrom, I have to do what? I have to give up the proc of the monster. Just the way it is. And people are going to be like, well, how do you figure that, Mystic? Well, it's simple. Because literally, I can go ahead, put this on. I'm going to stay double stacked. Now, that's going to leave me one slot, right? It's going to leave me one slot for one piece of monster, but I'll give that up. Especially on Magtoons, who's going to use what? Maelstrom, Staff, and whatever. Because you can stack Julianos. Like if I'm a Mage Blade, I can stack Julie with War Maiden, right? Because all of my damage is doing what? Magic. It's specific. It's very specific. And since all my damage is doing magic damage, I can use War Maiden, Juliana stacked with what? The Maelstrom and Asylum Weapon. But I'd have to give up what? The monster set. I'd have to give it up to maintain. Or I could give up the Maelstrom and Asylum to do what? Maintain my monster proc. So I could do that. That's the whole thing. The stand meta is about to start within 5 Two-Fang. Now, I think Yarg's got something said it probably the best. The VO sustain build is going to be kind of the thing to look forward to with the config. I agree with that. I agree with that completely. With the light attack, totally. It's going to have a lot of damage, a lot of sustain, and you can use still a pen set and maintain warrior and stuff. So it's going to be bringing, like, if they keep the changes with Night Mothers and Sunder, Two-Fang stacked with the VO will be reapplied. Whether it's a 2H dual wield, whatever, the effect will apply, and I agree with that. Unless they nerf Two-Fang the day before. Hey, I doubt that. Yeah, facts, Matt. Yeah. So, honestly, the way the configs are going to be set is, especially for Magicka users. Now, mind you, Stam users can still use dual wield for a back-end proc, right? Which they can. And you can still do that with the Magicka user. So, if I want to drop a static set, I could, for example, use a whatever one hand, go into like my monster set, right? Maintain that, keep one static, right? So I could keep a static and then run something like the vicious set for a back end set for a dual wield if you were a dual wield. But for Magicka users, that's not going to be the case. For Magicka users, it's either going to be a static swap, right? Maintained, or, which I've been doing static swaps, or you're going to basically do what? Zai got invited to Zos. Yeah, I was talking to Zai yesterday. Yeah, so that's who I was talking to. I already heard a lot of information from you guys, so I just kind of reconfirmed with Zai. So, but if you didn't catch the stream yesterday, guys, please go watch Zionode. He kind of covered all this. So I'm really happy that he was over there. So Actually, I'm glad I wasn't invited. Not that I probably ever will be, because I'd probably tell majority of them, those other players, to kind of whatever, because people like to talk underneath their breaths. I'm one who just doesn't deal with the shit. So it's going to come down to this. Are you going to run 2 statics? Comes down to the question. Are you going to stack the statics for a mag and for a bow, right? Are you going to do it? Or and give up the monster? And if you do that, are you going to want to maintain monster proc or give up the proc for the Maelstrom and whatever? Because keep in mind, Maelstrom, right, carries over, right? I'm not going to need a Maelstrom bow on both ends. I don't need it on both ends, right? But if I double stack the config with the monster proc, I'm basically, guess what? I have a cooldown effect now. Maelstrom Master has no cooldown effect. None to be applied. So the damage will be consistent across the board without. But I'd have to give up the monster set to do so. The monster proc. To double stack the config. I'd have to give up the proc, the cooldown timer, if I choose to use a Maelstrom and Master. If I choose. Now, for people who don't have Maelstrom and Master, the best aspect is closing the gap even further. Because by doing such, you maintain a proc effect at the expense of a cooldown. Right? And you can do that. So that's kind of a nice thing. So they're saying, okay, it's great because now the Magicka users get the benefits of what? Stacking like a stamina or tank. Well, that's good. But it doesn't allow specific sets like Netch, right, to be applied on a double stack of config because not all your damage modifiers are going to be what? Lightning based. So Netch sets like that are going to be like, do I like 2H builds? Every day, Yarg. Every day. I think 2H builds are awesome. I like Bow builds. I like Bow 2H. I got a build with Bow 2H actually right now. You play DK? Yes, I do. I actually have a build that unfortunately is going to see nerf to hell and back, which is Optimus. I'm still working on finalizing a few things. And that's using Sunder 2H and Night Mother Bow side. So I get the switch out side. And I really like it because it's basically debuffing for my entire party without the expense of them actually having to utilize other sets, and we can optimize their builds a little bit more around what? Me debuffing targets. The 2H splash damage applies with Sunder. So really liked it. Anyways, this server is about to go down. So I really just wanted to cover this today. So if you're going to use 2H configs, if sets like Netch are going to not be static. It's just not. They're not going to be a static set. But Giuliano's setups are going to be what? They're going to be static. But sets like Burning Spellweave can do what? Carry over. So unless you have a carryover set and you're going to have 2 static sets, you're going to stack, but you have to question the one thing that's going to be true. This is going to be an absolute. Maelstrom, Asylum, or monster set proc. Those are the true values. That is going to be up to you as a player to determine. But keep in mind, Maelstrom and Master and Asylum have no what? They have no global cooldown. Where monster sets will always have CD effects. Show me rotation? No, I don't do. I go over rotation with some people, Yarg, about like whatever, but I go static every day of the week on my test. Because when you go through rotation, this is a Twitch-based game. It's not a macro game. So human error can be applied. I'm an old schooler. I am old school. And the one thing that remains true in every MMO, static always remains true. Static value will always remain true. It's always been that way. In 21 years of MMOing, static values have never lied. It's reflective in your tool tips between max and penetration amount, and then of course in your metrics. So rotation is a key. But, once again, I don't do clickbait. It's not what I'm into. I'm not a clickbait boy. But if you want to go ahead and, like, you know, people want to go ahead and, like, measure dick sizes, by all means, go ahead. I go after the numbers. I don't go after clickbait. Fuck clickbait. I'm pushing numbers. I'm pushing max. How much can I maximize my abilities across the board? Maximize lights, whatever. And I cater to more average players. So that's who I cater to. But I also go over this type of stuff because it's very, very important. Very important. Because configurations are going to be changed, especially for mag tunes, and especially if you plan on going with like a Bobo build, which not all classes are going to be able to do that. It's going to be class specific depending on how many abilities will accommodate those type of configurations. 2H will be kind of very, very important because the 2H will be applied regardless. Like, a lot of people were like, 2H isn't viable. That's bullshit. It's bullshit. It always has been. Can't wait now. I can 5.52 on my stamp art. Yep, and it's the way it's going to be, David. That's exactly what we're saying here today. So are you choosing to go 5.52, or you can go 5.511? Because remember, Maelstrom and Master have one thing going against it. It doesn't give me a bonus, a second bonus. I know you're foreign, so I'm just kind of whatever. I'm interesting, not you DPS, only true rotation. Yeah, well, I go over some of that, Yarg. Some of it. But, like I said, I always tell people, like DK. DK is not so hard because all it is dot, heavy attack, reapply, heavy. If I use a 2H, so I get the follow-up passive. The follow-up passive applies to the direct effects of the DK, but not the dots. So every effect that the DK does in class-based ability has a direct damage applied with the dot effect applying after or at said. So it's like follow-up, apply, get 10% increase. Follow up, apply, dot, set it, increase. So that's the way it is. Now, Empower. Empower is definitely something I'm not happy about. I know a lot of people kind of like the idea of the light attack things, but a lot of my build config wrapped around what? Proccing my Empower buff towards my abilities. Because I'd stack the effect, right? So I was getting 40% increase with the Empower buff versus a 20. That was kind of huge, especially when I was going throughout every other rotation between the weave. So my spammable would be applied literally every 2 between weave application. I'm making 2H build on DK now. Nice, excellent. I'm glad to hear that. 2H build on DK is very nice. I like it because of that. I mean, a lot of people don't. To each their own, but I like it. Farm those mats and tempers. But the one thing I'm going to tell you guys, it's going to come down if you're going to use a bow 2H build or a destro build, which is nice because the weaves are important. I agree with Outcast with that. Light attacks are very important, detrimental to the DPS. Where the dual wheel, when we were running 2 swords, it was great because it bumped up the damage modifier because of the double stack config. But guess what? We losed on the weave. So our damage increase from abilities was noticeable, but losing out on that weave was kind of a detrimental aspect. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, now we could get the best of both worlds. But at the cost of what? Choosing whether or not we're going to run a weapon, even if you don't. Now, if you don't, it's not going to be an issue because you're going to run a monster proc. You're going to be able to double stack like David said. No biggie with monster set. Excellent. Cool deal. Awesome. Closing the margin. But if you use the Master, Maelstrom, or whatever have you, you have no global cooldown. None. 0. And you're giving up a global cooldown proc to use said effect. So in that aspect, you're going to gain longer without using a monster proc. But if you give up the Maelstrom, you will maintain a monster proc effect. In a 5-3 config, we'll lose out consistently against the double stack config because it's said specific. So I'm stacking a lot of spell damage towards my capabilities. So it's going to be interesting. You can see my 2H build on Sork on my last video. Nice, 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 nice. Awesome. I'm glad you're running it. I'm glad some people are. But, you know, a lot of people have always debated, oh, 2H, ugh. I like 2H. No more obsessing VMA. I'll be farming nodes. Yeah. VMA is just, it's good. It's a perk. It always will be, right? It will be a perk. But you're going to have to decide. It's a decision now. Do I want the proc or do I want to give it up? Do I want the monster proc or do I want to give it up? That's if you're running 2 static. It's just the way it is. It's the way it's going to be. It's going to be nature of the beast. That's just, it's the truth. Snoop, I don't mind because I suck too much to beat VMA. Just run a Sork and run a heavy attack build and learn mechanics. It's not bad. Except last board. Last board. Knockbacks. Get immune pots. Trust you and me. I'll just give you that. I don't cover the content. There's a lot of content creators out there that do it. I'll leave you at that. Last round. Immune pots. Trust you and me. Yeah, they nerfed empowered. That sucks too. Yeah. This is about to cut out, so heads up. I'm going to lose that. I'm going to get on some downtime. Scott, it's too hard once you start clearing it. It actually gets really, really easy, especially on a Mage Blade. That's the one I haven't completed it on yet, though, Snoop. Sorka, to me, is the easier one. But Mage Blade, I have problems in the last round. Because I can't keep up with all the... Like, I got way more AoE effects, I feel like, with my Sork. It could just be me, though. Whatever. Yes, but this is kind of way for devs to kill meta stuff. What is commonly used. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. 2H is top 4 AoE damage. You're right, Yark. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Yes, 2H is pushing out way more AoE damage because Splash. Thank you. Thank you, Yark. Thank you so much, man. I'm glad you said that. Because it's true. Everybody thinks I'm crazy for using a 2H on a stand build. I'm like, y'all are nuts. You are nuts. I'm working workshop with my guild, grooming some people for vet trials, and I tell people, having 2 stam users with 2H, when they said specifically that dual wield with Steel Tornado is like the hardest hitting, I'm like, AoE, I was like, whoa. The execution part I agree with, but in the initial hit, no. No. Not against the 2H AoE. No. Not happening. And it's behind the Rothgar. Yep, server's down. I don't know if live is still up. I can check that out. Let me go ahead and reopen and see if the other one's up. Might be on whatever. And it's behind the Rothgar paywall. Yeah, but you don't need it. That's what I've always said. It's a perk, but you never need it. Here's the thing, Matt. Majority of players, and I mean, I'm talking majority, huge amounts, do not have Maelstrom, don't have Master, don't have any of that. So are they restricted to come? Excuse me. My allergies have been real bad. Are they restricted due to such? That becomes question. Are they restricted? No, they're not. You know, they're just not restricted. You know, I mean, it helps. It's incentive. It's perk. It is. But is it an absolute requirement? No. No, not at all. Mechanics is one of the biggest things. Rotation, mechanics. Rotation, mechanics. Comes back down to that. But keep in mind, during mechanics, rotation slip. Recovery becomes what? Less, you know, noticeable. Actually, I'm going to go ahead. I did something yesterday, and I'm working on getting some more skill points to finalize my stand DK for PvP. I got a lot to do, but you guys can go on this little journey with me just for a few minutes as we're still talking about this. So I rebuilt my nasty proc dot and drop, and you're not seeing things. I'm using Skeletrax on this build for certain reasons. But anyways, so yeah. So yeah, I really like this setup. This is cancerous, by the way. This is very cancer. Don't follow my footsteps, please. For God's sakes, don't do that. But the funny thing about it is, I honestly believe that there are going to be pros and cons to a lot of configurations. And as you guys mentioned, it closes the gap. And it does. It reconfigures those builds, stops players from using the same configurations, which they shouldn't have been doing anyways. I mean, to be honest with you, for maximize team performance, you always set somewhat offset. And the reason being, excuse me, like I said, allergies are just terrible. Is it this side? Oh, no, no, no. Okay, yeah, I need to put that there. Like I said, I'm kind of playing around. I need to get some more skill points on this dude. But, honestly, guys, I feel like that some of the configuration changes are going to be good, and some people are going to try to re-implement some of the builds that they've used in the past. For Steam, it's all going to be dependent on what they do with Night Mothers and Sunder. That is going to be a huge issue, because as mentioned, if it continues, they're going to be pigeonholed into using the lever and sharpen or a pen set along with reallocation of CP. You have to at least hit about a 6,000 something on your own without. It's just that apparent. It's just that apparent. And for the devs not to take that into consideration, it's kind of like, wow. If anything, my suggestion, just readjust the values. The devs was saying on Twitch that they have no plans right now for another single player trailer. One second. Trial, single player trial. So they don't want to make the VMA weapons completely trash, and that they will look into them. Okay, good. They'll have to do that. They have to be careful. You have to be. See, because that's what it would do. Actually, to be honest with you guys, it would trash them. The stack, it'll go against the stack. From a mathematical perspective, the stack will prevail. The stack will prevail. From a mathematical point, you cannot go against the math. It would completely trash the sets. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news and be like, oh, because a lot of the other players, they don't take that into consideration. They do the testing after it comes out. And then they still bypass some of the most obvious things. It's like, from a mathematical perspective, if I'm able to double stack the set for the weapon damage or spell damage set and maintain accumulate enough penetration, I did have to question whether or not do I give up the monster to maintain, or do I give up the master maelstrom to do what? Go with the monster proc. I think they need to make 2-player content so I can get carried. What, for Maelstrom? I feel a certain way about a lot of things. For me personally, I don't really care. I mean, I feel like I said, I mean, it is what it is. Don't mind me. Like I said, my whole config's all even fucked up. Okay. This is not ideal by any means. Scott, I can carry you if on Xbox. But yeah, so I feel like that's one of the things that they're going to have to take a look at, right? They're really going to have to pay attention and be like, oh, okay, well, we don't want to trash these sets. Well, everything, the min-maxers, which I am fucking, I try not to be what everybody, I try to keep everything somewhat viable in how I config. Unfortunately, though, there are certain truths that you got Two-Fang Snake. Yeah, if they do what they do, Two-Fang will be whatever. But to be honest with you, I'll probably go with Spriggans because I don't have that build up. That's why I always use Spriggans. A lot of people were always saying, "Oh, Two-Fang." I was like, I don't have a build up with the other set. It's up front. I can offset the difference. And that's the way it'll be. I want straight out damage. Because I'm aware of burn application too. How the loss can occur during burn. I'm on PS4. I mean, it would be fun if ZOS came out with some 2-player new content. Oh yeah. I think that's something that can definitely be approached in the future. I like the zone idea. Me and Sherman were talking about that prior to this new information. And I'm like, you know, that's the one thing I want. I want zone. I want complete fucking zone content. I'm like, trials are nice, but once I get the gear, once I play it, it's like what? Now what? You got leaderboards for what? Cock contest? Fuck that. I want something engaging, man. I want something completely immersed. And now, because I played games like Rift, where everything was zoned, like we get these huge fucking rifts, and it was like, oh my god, and you'd see hundreds of people on rifts, especially if it was like raid rifts. Prior to the change, everybody would get involved in raid rifts, but then it was specific to said key or the raid sigil, right? So you had to have a sigil, and that would only apply to your team, players in your team. So you'd see the cut in the rift, applied the raid sigil, and all of a sudden people would get in that. Then you had like world rifts, which you would farm for your sigil stones and stuff. It was like crazy, but everybody was busy in the world continuously. So you had dungeons, you had raids, and you had world content, all being played all the time. And I feel like that was the one thing missing. I mean, we had domens, but domens weren't very, very, challenging. Compared to like, what can a community do to be pulled together? That's what I want to see. I want to see a community pull together. So it was kind of interesting, right? It's kind of like, okay, well now they're going to apply, different events. And it's like, okay, that's badass. That's like so cool. It's like, oh, right, yes, 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 and yes, more yes. Because now it takes the content and spreads it out evenly. So people are just dungeon diving. They're not just doing trials. They're literally like, I got to do this because I want to get this. I want to go over here and do that because of this. And I want to go do that because of this. It's like it spreads out the gameplay. It makes it more immersing and more, it feels, it gives that MMO feel to the game. Part of the MMO genre is what? Interaction. It's what it is. It's not just about PvP. It's interacting with the people around you in one way or the other, whether you like them or not, however you feel a certain way about it. So by them implementing these type of effects, it's going to make it very, very appealing. Like group questing in Craglorn was a great idea in the beginning, right? But then people have been getting away from it. It's like, oh, I can solo this. I want content that can't be soloed. Dolmens can be soloed. It's like, yeah, I guess. Dolmens can be soloed. I want world content that is not soloable. I want something that it forces the community to work together to do what? Accomplish something outside of raid and trial. It gives the average player a feeling of success, right? Without being what? Persecuted. Because when you're in a trial scenario, it's easy to be persecuted based on what? Class selection, gear selection, all of that becomes what? You know, a way to go ahead and make a player feel like they're shit. But when you put a system in that people can interact with without having to, you know, say what their builds are and what they're running, they're no longer persecuted because they're engaged with a ton of other players. I'm excited to see how Silverleash change will help non-DK and Warden. Well, they already had, Silverleash already did pull back, but it only pulled back undead. It was specifically targeted for undead only. So by removing the undead requirement, completely viable now. So viability is definitely apparent now. So that was the only thing that was stopping Silverleash to begin with. It had to be Daedra or undead for the pull. So that's what sucks. Most dungeons are kind of like that, but not all. Humanoids are unaffected. Bosses are still going to be immune. So, like WoW did with their legendary world bosses. Right! Yes! Yes, Joshua. Right, exactly. That's the one thing I've always had in an MMO. Right? Like, the world bosses in this game are good. Right? But, you know, you can two-man them. I could solo some on certain builds. Certain builds, I have no problem soloing them, to be honest with you. I can solo certain world bosses in this game with, like, okay, yeah, sure. But I want something that requires a lot of players. They want involved. They want in it. Right? PvP incentives. I think they need to really rework PvP incentives. Getting rewards of the worthy is nice. It's great. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. But, I mean, when I get so much gear that I can't even sell it anymore, I'm just deconning it, selling it, trashing it, doing something with it. It's like, it's too flooded. Give me a vendor that makes my AP worth something besides the golden. Give me something. I want something that I can work towards. Something I can visually see that says I need to earn X amount to get this nice thing I've been wanting. And it engages me. It's incentivizing it. Downloading game now. I like tanking. Am I stuck with DK as my only choice? No, Mark, you're not. You can play any class in any role. Each are different, though. DK is kind of like a novice tank. It's the easiest one to build around, right? Same thing with like Templar healers. The harder tanks, because the shield system would probably be Warden, but Warden has healing through its mitigation, so you can use a lot of self heals to offset mitigation. You can also use Sork tanks. Sork tanks are really good because they have a really nice shield system that kind of is different than a lot of other tanks because it scales Magicka. And there's going to be a lot of upcoming changes with Sork tank. So Sork tank's looking pretty in the future. Nightblade tanking can kind of be of a challenge because of its play style, but it runs more like off of a dodge system because you use abilities like Mirage and self-sustaining heals and cloaks and stuff to get your buffs, which kind of can be a downset too because that's how you get your mitigation up higher through your abilities. And then, of course, Templar tanks. If you like Paladin, old school Paladin play style, Templar tanks kind of play like Paladins. So there you have it. So if you like old school Paladins, Templar. If you want like, yep, it's exactly the way it is. You'll get, there's a couple players that are kind of like snobbish, but honestly, like if it's all about your preference. I just want new raid like Maul or Hoff, not these stamp AoE ad raids, right? Trash raids. Got you. Maybe have the type of mounts as a reward. That, you know, listen, you know what my idea is to incentivize vet trials? Is not gold jewelry. You know what my idea to incentivize vet trials? Trial monster sets. Monster sets that basically two-piece and buff, depending on class or depending on whatever, will buff your party. That's my idea. So basically, anybody can do the trials, right? Normal trials, get jewelry, get whatever. How do you incentivize vet trials? Forget hard mode and whatever. If you put out monster sets, now think about this, guys. Think about it. You put out monster sets specific to trials, like imagine the warrior monster set, right? Where it would do 1,000 cut, like it'd have a proc like 1,000 cuts for stam DPS. Imagine that, like but it'd have a crazy cooldown, but also like, you know, something that could buff players, like your team, all sorts of shit. Arthenian Archive, you know, having like something that, you know, benefited your mag players. Sanctum Ophidian, something that would benefit whatever. You could have like total different vet monster sets that would only apply to vet content, would not be used in vet situations in 4-mans, but would apply to 12 players. Something that would apply to 12-player teams, a buff, a modifier of sorts, that would apply to your 12-man teams. I like the idea, especially for tanks, because the way it is, when people want to just say whatever, hey, what's up, Slice? Well, I like the idea to incentivize something like that. To me, that's kind of like, oh, okay, you know, now we have an incentive. You know, it's not about gold jewelry anymore. It's not about sets. It's literally about, do our team, can they benefit from this vet monster set in their future trials? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like that's a way to incentivize it. To keep it incentivized, to keep the gameplay separated. And for the players that want to do that content and who want to do it, it's there. It's right up in front, right? It's just the way to go. Now, personally, I do only enough trials to get my gear and go. I'm not a hardcore trial person. I'm not competitive by any means. I think competitiveness in this platform is kind of like blech, because there's no server first. There's no, you know, top end score that sets the bar. It's like a week reset. It's like, ugh. And plus, I'm a former elitist, and I don't need to be a dick anymore. So, I don't need to be the dick I once was. Listen, all this additions are great, but where the hell is easier Sky Shard and lore book hunting for console? What do you mean? What do you mean, Scott? Are you saying I'm cheating? There's no cheating going on here. There's nothing that's telling me where everything is. Hey, remember, I play console as my main. I'm in that with you. There's an app. So it's High Elf, Warden, Frost, Staff, Tank, viable. Yeah, but your mitigation will be a little low compared to other classes, but you'll have a higher in damage and recovery point, Mark. So your recovery point will be a little bit higher with the High Elf, and your self-heals will be higher too. So that's kind of the perk with a High Elf tank, but your upfront mitigation modifier will be slightly lower. So it all depends on how you want to go with that. So really good on Magicka. You'll have to offset some stamina because block costs stamina. Remember that too. But usually a lot of your utilities are Magicka cost. So there are some perks to High Elf. Can you do it? Yes, absolutely. You can do it. You can do it, man. And Frost Staff actually would, I do take that back. Frost Staff would cost Magicka to block. So High Elf would have a very, very good resource pool to draw from on their block. Because that's carried over. So you would actually have a very good pool to draw from on block. And keep in mind, on the upcoming Summerset, make sure you get the Summerset. If you pre-ordered it, you got Morrowind too, Mark. So hopefully you got that one. with the upcoming changes, you're going to get a 2-stat bonus in the future for Frost Staff, so you'll be able to double stack the set. The only thing I don't like about Frost Staff currently at the moment that the devs have to address is there's not, like, there's sorted board sets that benefit tanks. There is no current Frost Staff out there, like a Maelstrom Frost Staff that's beneficial to tanks. Well, I shouldn't say that, because Warden, you can use the wall. That would increase your light attacks, and that would increase your healing production. I gotta get used to this again. I think they need to change the vet raid rewards like vet, like you get the skin. It's an idea. I see where we're going with that. I'm so ready for the two-handed change. Yeah, a lot of them are going to be really good. I think, you know, it puts 2H in a good place. That one, you get the perfect weapons. Okay. It makes sense. I don't know. I feel like you always have to incentivize something. Like, but like when I used to do, like rifts, we had our challenges, right? Like our little point score for accomplishments. And then after, I think after so many point scores, like you would get like fluff benefits, like, you know, whatever. That was really good. Wow, this is great info. Definitely, man. If I can help. Now, I don't know how much help I can be because I'm just misinforming. I misinform my viewers. Not really, but hey, whatever. I always tell people, don't believe me, though, because I mean, I do make mistakes. But I always tell people, ask, check, and test. That's what I tell people. No problem. Anytime, brother. Anytime. But yeah, frost tanks, like, will frost tanks be a upcoming thing? I think it'll help, but I think the mitigation for the shield on the heavy attack taunt needs addressed. It's one of the things I only wish they would address. But if they made it too OP, it would become meta. It would be like, oh my god, frost staff tanking is now meta because of the shield system. So I can understand why the devs don't really fuck with it too much. Mag users are going to destroy Stam users. I don't know. Actually, I kind of feel like the opposite. Like the stacked effect is still going to apply. But given the fact that Stam users can still use dual wield, right? That leaves the possibility that the set changes don't really hurt the Stam users much. It really impacts mag users to a whole different level. And Stam builds in certain aspects are affected. But honestly, I feel like, okay, how do you address the issue for Stam if they lose that much pen? That's what's going to hurt. Like, if that stays in place, yeah, right. I think mag tunes are going to totally fucking dominate against the Stam. But you have to be precarious. You have to be a little like, okay, well, we want to change it, but are we going to really apply a debuff effect that's already applied that doesn't stack? Hell fucking no. If you do that, you're fucked. What system you playing on, Mark? Yeah, that's a good question, Mark. Are you on Xbox? Are you a PC? Are you a console player? Because a lot of my community players reach out to each other, which that's why I have the best subs and the best community. Thank all of you for being so kind to each other and so respectful. That's why I love you guys. That's why you guys are my favorite. Stam user DPS taking a bit hit with the update, if it remains. Now they're saying that they're going to reevaluate things, and I, for God's sakes, hope they do, because it becomes issue. It becomes a very cloak. I heard getting a big damage nerf. Cloak will be, but from my understanding, that still does cloak. So, but the self-heal one for the tank setup would be good, because keep in mind when you activate a shadow ability, you gain your major buffs. So towards your mitigation, that will be very, very resourceful with the self-sustaining heal. So for the Nightblade tanks, that's going to be very resourceful. PC? Okay, sweet. Aloran is on PlayStation, but if you, a couple of my viewers, I'm on PC right now, but some of my viewers here are definitely PC players as well. We try to all be very cordial to each other. We do get trolls from time to time, more than a couple. And by the way, Mark, I am the most, forewarning, I am one of the most hated content creators in Elder Scrolls. So whatever you do, don't tell people you watch my show. You're better being undercover. You can learn much from anybody. There's a lot of good information out there, but some are chasing pipe dreams and Santa Clauses and tooth fairies. We all remember the words. BIS, BIS, it's bullshit, you know. BIS, BIS, it can go in the toilet hole. BIS, BIS. Making my cancer build again. Oh no, it shouldn't happen. It's okay, PC players deserve it. PC players deserve this. Lies. But your Xbox viewers are the best. My Xbox viewers are so badass. Okay, guys, drool. Drool on this. My Xbox players take care of me in way more ways than you guys can imagine. My Xbox players, if I log on, the first thing they say, "What's up, Mystic? You need anything today? Hey, Mystic, what are you farming for? Hey, Mystic." I love my Xbox viewers. When I walk into Cyrodiil and I chat in the room, everybody's trying to get me in their group. They listen to me. Way better than my PS4 community. I love my PS4 friends and my guilds, but my Xbox viewers take very good care of me. They spoil me, actually. And it's so hard when I play on so many platforms, but they spoil the shit out of me. What is Alkosh? It's a set that's used on a lot of tanks. It's a trial set. These guys like to hound my ass about it. It's a medium armor set, Mark. I don't know if you're familiar, if you played other MMOs. I don't know what other MMOs you played, but it's a set that gives like damage modifiers that's used on tanks because it applies a debuff to said target. So, and instead of having a medium armor wear or a DPS use the set, they slap it on a tank. They ignore mitigation 101 in this game a lot. And the tank sets that do come out for trials never see light of day, even though the devs put the hard work into making the sets because they think it sucks. So, hey, sure. I'll go for breakdown. Mark, if you hang around for a while, it's a long-standing joke with Mystic. Yeah. They love it. They love to fuck with me, Mark. I love my community members, though. They're still trying to get me to wear it. I don't mind off-tank. I keep telling them that, though, Mark. I'm like, I don't mind the off-tank using it. I'm never going to put it on my main tank. It's never going to fucking happen. And I won't heal a main tank with it anymore. So when I do vet trials, it's like, if you want me to heal your vet trial, I don't want to heal squish balls because my resources go down a fucking toilet. Dude, I go all the way back to Pong. Yes! Mark, I had Pong too, dude, because I'm in my 40s. Yes, I had Pong. It was so badass when there were the little sticks. Remember the double version, like the high speed setting? Oh my god, it was so awesome back in the day. moving that little circle paddle. So badass. But I also played Muds on PC.
Oh.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I used to do Muds prior to like UO. So, you know, love the Muds. Thank you for subscribing, by the way. So if you remember in most MMOs, Mark, mitigation has four set applied. Now on, this is a Twitch-based game, so it's not turn-based. So it's kind of plays like DCUO or something. So no turn-based, Twitch-based system. There are some global cooldowns, but not in the full effect the way you look at it. It's more applied to status and to synergies on the GCDs. Also, we got to take a look at the diminishing value is direct into the CP system or the AA system, as you would know it, the alternative advancement system. So, or leveling system, as it were, which we call champion points. So the DRs are set in the CP. The DR is still set in critical value percentage. Well, DRs are always in percentage math. But the one thing about mitigation is, in this game, it still runs off the same principle. So dodge and block are separate, though. Instead of statted, like on chance. So block is manual, and dodge is chance. Okay? Then you have self-heal mitigation that we know of. And then we have shielding system. So, and of course you're aware of shielding system. But shielding system in this game scales different for each class. Most of them is max health. But, you know, in this game a lot of people ignore that fact. And then they put a DPS set and then they say, you know, it's BIS. So, excuse me. My wife brought me some sausage. So I'm grabbing a piece real quick. So, Mystic, any more hate videos? I haven't seen any lately. Oh, I don't know. I never really pay attention too much. I mean, to me, they're whatever. They're still trying to, I think, get rid of me. Whoa, look at that lag. What in the fuck is up with that? Crazy. I have so much shit to do on this dude. I'm not going to play him long because I'll get bored really quick, but I have this build already. Except this time I'm using Skeletrex versus my Veladreth. So I have a CC stun effect. Pretty fucking cancerous, so I can like 1vx a lot easier. Whatever. Let's see. I have 2 skill points. I'm still... Dude, like seriously guys, I have so much leveling on this. Look, I still got to get my poison injector. So sad. I still need all these passives. So bad. But look, guys. I'll show you guys something. So yesterday, everybody knows who's watched me. I got the bow. Got that bitch already in Nirnholm. And look what I already had. The Maul Viper. It's so gross. So friggin' cancer. So fucking cancerous. I go back to Pong also. Semi-old. Right, dude? I remember when Atari first came out. And it was like insane to get, right? So I grew up in like born 70s, early 80s, and I still remember like the Atari, like, right? And you were like, oh, I want the Atari. My first semi-MMO was Phantasy Star Online. Yes, RPG for the win on Dreamcast. Been a console player my whole life, aka Sega fanboy. Yeah, now Xbox. What faction? Depends. Like, it all depends on what you're looking for. On PC, I'm DC. So on this platform, I'm DC. A lot of content, like high-end content creators are. I was not aware of it when I did it. I did it because a real-life friend was like, I'm DC. Okay, I'll go Daggerfall. Okay, cool. Excellent. But then, of course, I have Ebonheart Pack on my... Oh, shit. I was trying to turn it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just committed a murder. Oh, no. I'm so sorry. Faction doesn't... Yeah. If you're PvPer, though, Battlegrounds, it don't matter. Cyrodiil definitely does. If you play DAOC, Mark, if you play Dark Age of Camelot, same setup. Almost even same layout, really. Couple minor things. Because we have Matt, Fire, how you want to pronounce it? I would say Fear, but, or Firer, F-I-R-O-R. And, like, the legend himself. He's the executive director in the game. Yeah. Any race, any alliance, though, would be a big whatever. So it would be about your race selection. Unless you have any race, any alliance. If you don't have any race, any alliance, go with whatever race. That'll depend on your faction. That'll determine faction. David, do you have on Xbox? Alright. I still gotta train mounts today and everything else too. But anyways, guys, I'm about to wrap this up. But configurations, future configurations is going to make a big difference. I think the devs have to be they have to walk a fine line here. They're going to have to. A lot of really cool shit. It's all cool. But at the end of the day, if you apply, and I will quote this, you quote me, if you apply Major Fracture to Sunder and Night Mothers, you're trashing the sets for PvE. PvP, not so much. But no one's going to use Sunder in PvP because then, what, you got to do a heavy attack? Bullshit. No one's going to do that. Major Fracture on Night Mothers for PvP would be badass, though. For sure. That would be a badass idea. But no one's going to use it for PvE. No way. Debuffs don't stack. You have a non-stacking system like that. Will not be implemented. Got to make my Stam PvP setup now. Don't know whether to go Stam Sork or Stam Warden. Dude, I've been playing Stam Sork recently. There's a couple of things I really don't. I changed my config around based on play. Like, I have one for Cyrodiil. I try to use for friggin' Battlegrounds. Didn't work out so well. Then I went dual wield, switched it up a little bit, and now I love it for Battlegrounds, and then I have my Cyrodiil build, which I'm not doing Cyrodiil currently at the moment on PS4 because they're a bunch of morons. I hate when you do that and it just doesn't whatever. Spartacus on Xbox, I'll add you. Yep. I'm not home, Scott. Add me. Sweet. Okay, I'm out. I'll see you in game. Definitely. I'm not on PC a lot, Mark, but if I'm on here, hit me up sometime. Like, I play 3 platforms. I'm a busy, busy boy. Plus, when PTS comes out for Summerset, I'll be glued in there. So I'll be probably taking a week off. Glued in the Summerset for PTS. First week, I'll skip the week. The second week, usually Phase 2 will come out, and then I'll start posting shit. Because Phase 2, it's all about Phase 2 for me. Everything's about Phase 2. Man, Mystic, I resubbed DAOC the other day to kill people with my Stormcaller thing. Ah, awesome. Dude, but honestly, if yeah, because you already had the build. But DAOC, this is exactly like DAOC. It's exactly the same. You know, it's exactly the same. And tell me I'm wrong. Like, every time I walk into Cyrodiil, I have flashbacks of... And I didn't play DAOC very long, but I still have flashbacks of it, you know? I still get that, you know, nostalgic feeling, I guess, when I'm in Cyrodiil sometimes. So, definitely is crazy. I just want my bow ability up. Oh, there's my Hawkeye. Nice. So I need this ability. I just need a poison injector. Now I'm at 30. I got 8 more levels on that. I got a couple more skill points to get. Unlock a couple of the passives. Pretty much everything else is just unlocked. So, yeah. It's going to be nasty. This is going to be gross. Like, literally, like, they should never let me, like, build these type of builds. Ever. I'm a cancer promoter in this game. You know, totally. They'll nerf me, though. They'll find a way to nerf my ass. They will figure it out. But, yeah. I'm serious, guys. Configuration, very, very important. Pay attention. I'm going to cut the stream here. I'm just going to go over here, got this, and I'll cut the stream. Configuration going to be important. If you're going to be running bow or dual destro, which is going to be good, it will be very, very good. But if you have master, if you have maelstrom, what are you going to sacrifice to maintain the double stack? Because currently, that's the way it's going to be unless you have a set that doesn't have to remain static. Like what? Like Burning Spellweave. Burning Spellweave is a set that does not have to remain static. It can be procced and then reapplied on the back end. That's the nice thing with the Maelstrom, because the Maelstrom, once the walls applied, it goes on the back end for the reverse effect. So, something like that for the DK is not going to be as detrimental as other configurations, because other configurations have to remain static to yield the most potential damage output. That is a guaranteed to be fact. You cannot go against the stack. It will not happen. Stacked stats will always prevail on static value. Okay, let's repeat that. Stacked stats will always remain true on static value. Okay? So, that's rule of thumb. MMO 101. So, you can't change it. No one can change it. No one can do it. They can try. They can say some bullshit. But, hey, whatever. Did a BG and was killing guys. Got one. And it said I gained a skill point. Yep. You gain skill points. Yes, you do. When you get ranks in PvP, you get skill points. Correct. You're not ESO is an update DOC. You're not ESO is an updated DOC. Yeah, it is. Dude, it's an updated DOC. DAOC all the way. It's an updated version of it in Cyrodiil. That's all it is. Like, I was telling that on the PS4 players. I'm like, they're like, what do you know? And I'm like, dude, I've been playing this map since DAOC, motherfuckers. I'm like, you guys have no fucking clue. I'm like, you guys, that's why you guys suck. Your strategy sucks. I mean, half the players in this friggin' place weren't even trying to play the friggin' campaign half the time. Even though it was built for it. They were like, we're 1vxing, and completely ignoring that there was a fucking siege system being applied in the game. I'm like, okay, cool. Say that 5 times fast. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can. Stack stats stay true to static value. Stack stats stay true to static values. Stack stats stay true to static value. Stack stats stay true to static value. Stack stats stay true to static value. Okay, there you guys have it. That's all, folks. Yeah, alright. Actually, I should decon that anyways. But yeah. So they're going to have to be careful. Be very careful, Zoss. Very careful. Did I get the way shrine at this? Okay, cool. I did. Alright. Anyways, I'm out, guys. I hope the day treats you well. If anybody has any questions, comments, post below. Once again, Summerset is going to bring out a bunch of really cool shit. We're going to see jewelry crafting. We're going to see new traits, new configurations, tanking, and other class implications are going to make other classes in those roles a lot more easier to manage, especially in group-oriented situations. But once again, configuration is going to be very, 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 very detrimental to how you apply. A lot of options, but once again, if they do what they're going to do with Night Mother and Sunder, unfortunately, STAM users are going to be very pigeonholed on ways to acquire penetrating values, especially towards 12-man scenarios. All right, so we'll leave it at that. All right, guys, thank you guys for watching. Once again, I'm Mr. Craven, the CSO Daily, and as always, have a nice day.